Alright, hello people and welcome back. Just did a few bounty runs, get some crafting materials. Really what I needed was basic ones. These ones right here, and I think I've got, I still don't have quite as many as what I would like, but I think I could probably do one more bounty run, but I think I'm going to hold off for a little while anyways. I got enough for a while. Let's go get started with some more. More of these. I went through my, after I got done last night, I went through my, my inventory, and I cleared it up at least a little bit anyways. Just trying to make some space. There were a lot of things I had, like, I think I had 3 pairs of these. One of them was not even ancient legendary. Probably no reason to hold on to that. And let's see. So I really needed to make some room here. These are for my bounty run. I find that it's been working out better keeping my my gems here. What I had been doing is I had been keeping my gems here, and every time I'd get done doing something, I'd come and I'd put my gems in there. Well, now all my gems just stay right here, and I don't have to put anything in there. It saves me a little bit of time. I think I used to keep a lot of items in my inventory here along the bottom. And that was before I started keeping them in a special tab where I could switch back and forth, because I found that if I just kept my items like all like in these areas, then when I'd go to switch between builds, it would mess everything up. All my items would go all over the place, and I was never be able to find anything. So I started keeping my items that I switch back and forth between builds at the bottom of my inventory, and then that way they just switch back and forth here in my stash. I should have been saying stash here, not inventory. Stash. My stash would be unaffected. But then I get the idea, well, why don't I just have one tab in my stash, and I switch back and forth between builds with the items that I switch back and forth. I keep them all in one tab, and then it's just that one tab that might get a little messed up, and the rest of my tabs are fine. And so once I did that, that freed up a bunch of area in my inventory, and now I've got space here to I'll keep this down here. Now I've got space here to keep these gems, and you only get basically these 2 types of gems, or these 2 levels of gems here, so I don't need to keep all my gems here, just these right here. So let's just take a moment just to go over my current build. I haven't done that in a while. So here's my current build. This is a build that I had an idea for a couple seasons ago. Let's see if I can look it up here real quick. Season 17. Season 7, maybe season 17. And it's more or less, I think it's more or less the same thing with just a couple differences, but the idea is basically these 2 items together make Grimsith extremely powerful when you're fighting a bunch of creatures. This here says the Grimsith deals an additional amount of damage, 67%, for each point of essence it restores. So each point, a single point, okay, of essence restored increases the damage of the Grimsith by that 67%. Okay, now, first of all, before I get too much into the basics of it, let me just say this was my build a few seasons ago, but it did not work. It did not work. It wasn't anywhere near as good as the top builds for that season, because this build focuses heavily on killing non-elites. Okay? non-elites, which I came to learn at that point is basically worthless. You only want to kill elites. And some of the basic builds for this season focused on thorns with this bone ringer right here, and using command skeletons. This build focuses pretty much purely on killing elites. And that was why that this build, and I think there was another build also that went along with it. There are actually 3 builds this season that focused on killing elites only. My build, I do want to kill elites, and I do focus on killing elites, but a lot of it, especially this Grim Sith, focuses on killing mass numbers of non-elites. That did not work, because you basically get so little reward for killing non-elites, so little progress, that you could kill tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of them, and you would still take a fairly long time getting to the end, where the Rift Guardian is. But then, not only that, but this build has 2 different means of attack. It's got the Grim Sith, but then it's got the Land of the Dead Corpse Lance. Well, by the time you get to the end to face the Rift Guardian, the Grim Sith does basically nothing against the Rift Guardian. It's all about Land of the Dead and Corpse Lance against the Rift Guardian. But because I have to split up my offense between 2 different means of attack, this doesn't do nearly as much damage against opponents as what maybe it could do if I focused everything into this. But because I have to divide my offense between these 2, this wasn't very. It didn't kill the Rift Guardian outright. Okay, and because I just didn't have enough firepower in it. But this season is different, because this season we have the Pandemonium seasonal buff. Okay, and the Pandemonium seasonal buff basically gives you a good reward for killing creatures, but specifically for non-elites, and that's what makes the build work this season. Okay, you get 3 rewards for killing the non-elites. You get increased movement speed. The more you get in your kill streak, the faster you run. You get a damage bonus, okay, for your current kill streak, and you get occasionally you get special effects that come out at various points in the kill streak. So at 30 kills, everything gets frozen for like 10 seconds. At 50 kills, I think corpses fall from the sky doing damage and so forth. So the reward for killing the non-elites justifies or makes this build viable this season. And it may even make it better than any other build. Right now, the current top build is one that's called, they call it Singularity Mage. And basically everyone has basically done a carbon copy of it. They just look at the leaderboard and they say, hey, I'm just going to take these items and these skills and copy it, and then I'll get high on the leaderboards. Well, this, I think, and I haven't seen anyone actually play this build, but I think this also focuses heavily on just killing elites. And as a matter of fact, looking at these skills, I have no doubt that that's how this build works. It doesn't look like there's any way for them to really be able to kill non-elites as they go. This Land of the Dead, whenever they encounter an elite, they probably hit Land of the Dead and then flood the map with skeletal mages. The only way that they'd be able to kill non-elites is by using this blood. No, they couldn't even do it with blood rush. Unless they're devouring some corpses. They would have to be devouring some corpses. But even so, there's no way they could kill non-elites. There's no way for them to replenish their essence as they go, other than with this Land of the Dead. Okay, and that's that's fine, but this build is not getting the benefit from the seasonal buff, whereas I am. And then that's why I think that my build actually probably works better than this build, or at least it makes it competitive against it. So what is it? What is the build? These two items right here are what basically do the big damage against the non-elites. Okay, as I said before, the bonus to this one says Grim Sith deals an additional 70% damage for each point of essence it restores. 1 point. 1 point of essence. Okay? Restores 77% damage. The Grim Sith attack, just that attack alone, each swing against a monster restores 12 points. So that's 12 times this 77%. That's how much the additional damage is just against a single monster. Now this Grim Sith has, it's what they call, I guess, a slashing, or it can attack many enemies at once. So for each enemy I hit, it restores 12 essence. So if there's 2 enemies next to me, that's 24 essence. That's 24 times this 77%. If there's 3 enemies next to me, that's 36. So it's 36 times. So the more enemies that are around me, the more essence gets generated, which makes this damage multiply even more. And sometimes there's like 10 enemies around me, especially against like little small creatures. I can swipe and hit 10, maybe even 15. I don't know how many it is. Hit them all in one shot, and I can almost kill them in one shot because it just does so much damage. And that's really how this works. I used to use Cursed Sith for the Grim Sith because I wanted that 100% chance to apply a curse. I found that really, it was nice, but I had found something a little bit better. The problem with the Cursed Sith rune for the Grim Sith, normally your enemies have a 15% chance to be inflicted with a random curse. Well, that item that I just showed you, that weapon, turns that into 100%. But it's poison based. It's poison based. And I've managed to get it to where my cold damage is all increased by 75.
Not rest. Neither should we.
75%. Let me dismiss him for a minute. I don't have to listen to him anymore. So that way, so I've got 70% damage for cold, and I found that giving up that 100% chance curse was worth it to go with this Frost Sith. Now it's become a cold based skill, and so now it's going to get that 75% extra cold damage. That's much more worth it than getting that curse. Not only that, but also each enemy hit increases my attack speed by 1% for 5 seconds. So usually after I've been going and going and going, or sometimes even after the first couple of hits, I'm at 15 stacks and I've got a 15% bonus to my attack speed. So that's much more worth than this benefit here of the Grim Sith. But this does give me 198% increased damage to any cursed enemy. Now I've got this frailty. This is an aura of frailty all around me. If you see this radius here, anyone within that radius gets affected with this curse. So that helps this 198% damage to kick in against all those enemies. Anyone around me takes that kind of damage. So that's what makes this worth it here. Alright, so how about some of my other items? Now, the other mode of attack against elites, I've got Land of the Dead and Corpse Lance. Land of the Dead and Corpse Lance right here. So when you hit Land of the Dead, you basically get unlimited corpses for the duration that it's going off of, which here is 10 seconds. So this Corpse Lance, this consumes a corpse to deal 1,750% weapon damage to the target. And because of the rune that I have here for this Corpse Lance, first of all, it's cold damage. Okay, which gives it that 75%, 70% damage bonus. But also, enemies become brittle, increasing their chance to be critically hit by 5% chance for 5 seconds. So, for the most part, I believe that 5% stacks. So when I hit Land of the Dead, I've got unlimited corpses. So as I'm doing this corpse lance, that critical hit chance 5% is stacking, stacking, stacking. And I believe it really fast goes up to 100%. So now, each one, after it gets up to 100%, is taking critical hit damage, which right now I have set to, it's at 354%. So they're taking massive, massive damage. Not only because it's 1,750% damage, but because they're taking all the critical hit damage, and they're taking the cold damage. So it does a lot of damage. But the real key is with the seasonal bonus, the seasonal buff. If I've got my kill streak from the Pandemonium, okay, where'd it go? He's not showing it. Okay, there it is. If I've got that kill streak going and I've managed to keep it throughout the whole rift, by the end of the rift, when I get to the Rift Guardian, I've probably got at least, usually I've got at least 300-400, sometimes 500 kills at the end there. And so that translates into a 30%, 40%, or 50%, 60%, whatever it is, damage bonus. And with that, that's added on to my Land of the Dead Corpse Lance that I use against the Rift Guardian, and a little bit with the Grim Sith too, depending upon what type of Rift Guardian it is. And with that, that seems to really help against killing the Rift Guardian. Now sometimes I lose the kill streak, and when I get to the Rift Guardian I basically have no kill streak bonus. Well, I definitely feel it. I definitely see it. I'm definitely not doing as much damage. But the other seasons, they didn't have this bonus. So when I'd get to that Rift Guardian, it would be just the basic Land of the Dead Corpse Lance against the Rift Guardian, and it just doesn't do, it just didn't do enough damage to be able to kill the Rift Guardian outright. But with that bonus, that Pandemonium seasonal bonus, now it definitely does do, it doesn't always kill him outright, but it definitely gets him down really, really, really low. But the other thing too, with that seasonal bonus, killing the enemies as I go. Now, of course, the movement speed is nice too. I think you can have up to a maximum of 35% movement speed. I think that's what it is. So usually I'm at around a bonus of 20, maybe 25% movement speed. That's what I work my way up to. But the other thing is the you get special effects as you go. Let's see if I can punch it up here real quick. Let's see if it'll come up here. I think this is the right one. Nope, that's the wrong patch. Let's try this one. I think it's this one. Okay, so these are the different effects from the Pandemonium buff this season. Now, if you're currently playing a build that doesn't take advantage of the seasonal buff or doesn't kill very many creatures, you're not getting these. Some of these are really, really powerful. And I learned a few episodes ago, or at least I thought of the idea, to make sure I time these different things while I'm fighting an elite. Many of these kill the elite outright, especially this one, this Dark Geysers from beneath the enemies. If this pops up right below an elite, usually kills that elite outright. And that gives me a lot of progress towards the greater rift that I'm doing. So, you know, and some of these aren't all that great. Corpses Rain for the Sky, that's pretty good. This Wide Frost Nova, it's not bad. I've got a couple of things with my build that helps it deal a bit more damage, but it basically makes it so you're not taking any damage for, I think it's like 10 seconds or something, because everything's frozen. Treasure Chest Fall from the Sky, that's alright. Ring of Fire, this one doesn't really seem to do too much. It basically works well against a group of non-elites. If you got a lot of them around you, it'll kill most of them, but it doesn't do too much damage against the elites. Meteors fall from the sky, that's pretty good. Angels, depends on who I'm fighting. They don't seem to last very long. They don't last long enough. They come down and they might kill a few things, but they usually die pretty quick, or I don't know. I've never got 1,000 kills, so I don't know what's here. But anyways, that's what makes my current build fairly effective, because I can get those effects to kill the elites to get more progress towards the end of the rift, plus I've got the bonus damage. Alright, so that's the basic concept towards this build. It's Grim Sith with these two items, especially this item right here, against the non-elites, and then against the elites. Okay, now there's the other thing. This isn't just for the Rift Guardian, this also works well against the elites. I can usually take out an elite in one hit with Land of the Dead and Corpse Lance. And that I might do that if I'm not anywhere near the number of kills to get one of those special effects, or if I've lost my kill streak. So what are some of the other items that I've got? Okay, Depth Diggers. Depth Diggers increase the damage of skills by 87%, that primary skills that generate resource. Well, that's exactly what Grim Sith does. It's a primary skills that generates resource. So for my Grim Sith, this one here gives me an extra 87% damage to it. So that's very nice, very helpful. This one here boosts up my Corpse Lance damage by 26% for 3 seconds when I consume a corpse. 20 stacks. Tough to tell you just how much damage that deals. It's basically 20 times 26. What is that? 520? Is that 520? So 520% bonus damage when using these two, because it doesn't take very long to get up to 20 stacks. So that's an amazing amount of extra damage here. 527% damage, and you can see it as when I first cast Land of the Dead. You see how much damage it's taking off the Rift Guardian, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes. That's because this is building up to get to the maximum 20 stacks. I don't know how long it takes. 3 seconds, something like that. Johnstone. This is different from what I played with that other build from a few seasons ago. This I found to be really effective. I was using the Wisdom of Kalan to boost up my bone armor, which I haven't talked about yet, but it's basically a very defensive item. Well, I have since switched over to this. This gives me 50 stacks towards my Corpse Lance after casting Land of the Dead, and each stack increases the damage of my Corpse Lance by 168% damage. Once again, tough to tell you just exactly how effective this has been. It basically turns out every time I use Land of the Dead now, it's a bonus of 168% damage, and it does so much damage with this, because that 50 stacks, even against the Rift Guardian at the end with this, I can almost kill that Rift Guardian outright if I've got a full 50 stacks. And a good seasonal buff bonus, or I can at least get pretty close. But against elites, even just against elites, this definitely does a lot of damage. So I really like the Johnstone there. So those are some of the core things. Let's take a look at what's in my cube here. Okay. I'll go away. Okay, so in my cube, this one here, I've got Raeliana's Shadow Hook. Basically, every build is going to have this, unless if it goes with more of a Thorns build. But basically, half of your essence is a bonus to your damage. So you take your maximum essence minus 310. You cut that in half, that's how much of a bonus to damage you get. So that's what, 155? I've got 155% damage bonus based upon this right here. That's how the math works out. I've decided to use Frostburn in here. All of my cold skills deal an extra 20% damage. So that's how I get this up to 70, partly how I get this up to 75% damage. And both my Grim Sith and my Corpse Lance are cold based, so this just makes sense. But also, there's a 50% chance to freeze enemies, which also is very nice because I'm using this ring here called Crispin's Sentence. I deal 100% damage to enemies that are slowed, or triple that, 300% damage bonus to enemies affected by any other control impairing effect. Freeze is a control impairing effect. So I deal an extra 300% damage to any enemy that is frozen. Okay, so that's the probably the main benefit to Frostburn here. The 20% damage is good too, but that really I think, you know, as long as about half the time I'm getting triple this bonus because of this item here. All right. Also, is another little kink in the notch here. Okay, I've got this item here. This is Shimizu. I'd never really used this before. I never really saw the benefit, but it works really well with this ring here. When I'm below 21% life, all of my attacks are guaranteed critical hits. So when I'm 21% life or less, every one of my attacks is doing 350% bonus damage. With this item here, my damage reduction is increased by 0.95% for every 1% life I am missing. The lower my life is, the greater my damage reduction is. With this here, I can linger at very low life, and you'll see the screen turn all red. Very low life for large periods of time, which helps me to kick in this bonus critical hit damage. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to boost up my life and my vitality as much as I can, so I have a bigger margin to work with, a bigger amount of life to work with here to keep myself underneath there. And if you watch me, a lot of times you'll see my whole screen turn red, but I'm not doing very much to increase my life, to heal myself, because I want to be there, as long as I don't die, of course. I want to be at low life so that I'm doing the bonus critical hit damage. That's I found that to be a very good combination right there. What else have I got? Okay, I was using Leoric's Crown, which doubled the effectiveness of the purple gem in here, which gave me an extra life. I found this here, the only reason why I'm using this is because the extra cold skills deal 16% more damage. So it added on to this. So it gave me an extra 16% damage to all my cold skills. The other thing, the attacks release a Poison Nova. I don't think that deals very much damage when compared to my Grim Sith and my Corpse Lance. It's minuscule at best, I think. So that's the only reason why I'm using this. If I didn't have this, I would definitely go back to Leoric's Crown for the extra 23% life that I would be getting, which would help me out with this. But I think this is working out pretty well, so I've decided to keep this. I also really like these gloves here for this build. Every time I encounter an elite pack and it damages me, basically I get a free 10 seconds of not taking any damage, more or less. Because I gain an absorb shield equal to 131% of my maximum life. So I've got a shield of all of this life times 1.3. So, you know, it looks like a 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 million life. This basically gives me an extra 3%, extra 10 seconds. I can usually just run right around the elite, and as long as I'm not like standing right in an arcane turret or something like that, usually I've just got 10 free seconds to do whatever I want against the elite or the Rift Guardian and those stats are pretty nice too. Critical hit chance, critical hit damage. Those are just about the best stats I could hope for in an item like that. Nemesis bracers. Every time I hit a shrine, it spawns an elite. This comes in so handy. Every time I hit a shrine now, I get an elite, and I can either do my Land of the Dead Corpse Lance, or a lot of times just my Grim Sith alone can take out the elite. This helps me out a lot. Some builds, unfortunately, I can't use this. Last season I played a Witch Doctor, and I just wasn't able to use Nemesis bracers with the Witch Doctor because there was another pair of bracers that was just better for the build than this. But I really like to have the Nemesis bracers when I can, and that Cold Stills deals 20% more damage. Contributing to this obviously is helpful as well. Dainty's Binding. I think almost every Necromancer build should have this item. You gain an additional damage reduction. This is at 45%. When any enemy is afflicted by any of your curses. Well, I've got this curse here. I'm almost always cursing at least one enemy. So this is almost always a guaranteed 45% damage reduction for me. This is really nice for damage reduction. Unity, alright, if you got... There's a 3-way combo for Unity, which you probably know about.
You seem to think that my life is full of ease.
Quiet.
It is.
I had a toy. Sometimes I just wish I could shut that off. Okay, and the 3-way combo is if your follower and you are both wearing Unity, all of your damage taken is split between the two of you. The third piece is this Templar relic here, or the Enchantress Focus, she's got one, and the Scoundrel Token, he's got one. If it says your follower cannot die, then your follower ends up never taking any damage. Therefore, half of the damage you take is going to your follower, but since your follower is not taking any damage, there's no damage going from your follower back to you. It's basically just a free 50% damage reduction. So powerful, so effective, and there are a couple other rings that the follower could wear that are also pretty good, but I've really just gotten a lot of effectiveness, success with my build. Any build that I make now, I use Unity. Unfortunately, if you're playing multiplayer, obviously it cannot work because you don't bring your follower with you into multiplayer. But with solo play, I always have Unity and your follower cannot die. Whenever I get that 3-way combo, I hook it right up and start using it. Works out really, really well. While we're here on the subject of followers, the other combo that I've found that works really well, a lightning-based weapon, okay, like this one here. There's a couple of them. I think this one works the best. Blast your enemy with lightning, dealing that weapon damage, and then jumping to additional nearby enemies with this weird word. Lightning damage has a 31% chance to stun enemies for 1.5 seconds, and then I've got the Dobu energy trap, which boosts that up a little bit more. This effectively stuns all of the enemies that my Templar hits, plus jumping to nearby enemies for that 1.5 seconds. When I'm fighting a Rift Guardian, one that doesn't summon up creatures, and he's attacking the Rift Guardian, if you watch, that Rift Guardian gets stunned so often. It is such a great defensive combination. And you don't have to do it obviously with just the Templar. You could do it with the Enchantress. I don't know if there's a lightning based bow and arrow for the Scoundrel. I don't use bow and arrow. I don't use Demon Hunter, so I don't know. It might work with a Demon Hunter. I'm not sure. But this, he stuns enemies so much, which is good defensively. Plus, when they're stunned, my Crispin Sentence is kicking in, so I'm dealing an extra 300% damage to stunned enemies. Such a great combination, especially for this build here. The Storm Shield, this is...
He was of your order, yet.
The Storm Shield is nothing, it's just an item there. I don't think that his actual damage does anything, it's just those bonus effects. If those weren't there... I used to use the Oculus Ring with him, but those other two I've just found to be so effective that I'm just going to go with that combo from now on. I never used to use firewalkers. I used to, and normally I would use, where are they? My illusory boots, wherever they are. There they are. Normally I would use these because I like to have freedom of movement on the board so I can run anywhere. I used to use these. But with the seasonal bonus, the firewalkers I found to be really, really useful, and so I've decided to keep them. Because if I'm running away, any enemy that's following me, they're going to start taking that fire damage. That keeps the kill streak going, because all you got to do is tag or do a little bit of damage to an enemy to keep that seasonal bonus going. This has been so helpful to keep that seasonal bonus going, because all I have to do is go near an enemy like this. He starts taking the fire damage, and he keeps that seasonal bonus going, especially when you're going down to a new level of a dungeon. I wish that they had given like a 2 or 3 second grace period going down to a new level of a dungeon, because you lose a couple seconds right there, and you've got to tag enemies within 5 seconds, otherwise the kill streak goes away. I suppose I probably should have mentioned that already. You're killing enemies, you've got 5 seconds. If 5 seconds lapses in between tagging an enemy, your kill streak completely goes away and you start over from 0. And that's really heartbreaking for me sometimes. But these firewalkers really help keep the kill streak going. So let's just say that the level down to the next level dungeon is right here. And I'm over here and I see it and I want to go down. If there's one enemy, a lot of times I'll just try and keep that enemy right behind me. He's running in my fire damage. He's getting tagged. And so right up to the very moment when I go down to the next level, my kill streak has been continued. And so usually, almost every time, that gives me the time I need to reach the next monster down at the next level, hit him, and the kill streak is still going. I found that very useful. Without that pandemonium bonus, I would never use these firewalkers, because the damage that they do is negligible. It doesn't do anything hardly. But with that kill streak, keeping that kill streak going, I found that this is really, really useful. So I've just stuck with it. Let's see, my legendary gems. Was that all my items? I think that was all of my items, basically. And I think I went through the ones here. Yep, I went through all these. Okay, my legendary gems. This one, obviously, you obviously need the Legacy of Dreams leveled up to rank 99 so that you've got the maximum bonus for an ancient legendary build. Ugh. Quiet. Okay. And then I got Simplicity Strength. Increase the damage of primary skills by 77%. Hits with primary abilities heal me for 4% of my maximum health. Well, that's all Grimsith. Grimsith is my primary skill. So my Grimsith is increased 77%. And hits with them heal me for 4% of my maximum health. So every hit with my Grimsith, I get healed. I guess it's with every enemy hit. So once again, if there's a lot of enemies around me, one swing, okay, I might get healed by, who knows, 20%, 30% of my maximum health with just one swing. And then I use Bane of the Trapped. Not everyone uses this. A lot of people do. But it is especially useful for me. Increases the damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by 46.80%, which is more or less exactly what Crispin's Sentence does. But also I gain an aura that reduces the movement speed or slows the enemies within 15 yards by 30%. So anyone within this circle here, they are slowed. That automatically helps my Bane of the Trap kick in. It helps my Crispin Sentence kick in. So everyone's taken at least some bonus damage from having been slowed. So let's see. Let's go with my skills. Obviously, got the Grim Sith. I go with the Frost Sith for increased movement speed and because it's cold based. Skeletal Mage. I suppose I should have mentioned this first. when I swing with Grim Sith and using my Legger's Disdain, you're only getting the bonus damage if you are restoring essence. Well, my essence at this particular moment is already at maximum. If I swing with the Grim Sith, it's not going to restore any essence because I'm already at maximum. So I'm not going to be gaining any essence with that particular swing, and therefore this is not kicked in. So what I have is this Skeletal Mage with Singularity. The damage from the Skeletal Mage is negligible. It doesn't do anything in this build. It is merely here to use up and consume all of my essence when I cast it. I'm sure it does a little bit of damage, okay, but nothing compared to my Corpse Lance Grim Sith Land of the Dead. It's just there to use up my essence. So I cast it. Now I've got no essence. Now, when I swing, now this is going to be restoring essence, restoring essence, restoring essence. But that's the only reason why that Skeletal Mage is there. To use and consume my essence. So now when I swing with my Grim Sith, it's going to restore the essence, and this bonus damage kicks in. Okay, so don't get confused. This is not a Singularity Mage build. This is here just to consume the essence. Okay, I also use Bone Armor. Do I need to use Bone Armor? Not necessarily, but there are a couple important reasons for using this Bone Armor. Number one, you get damage reduction. When I've got 10 stacks, I've got 30% damage reduction, which is nice. But also I use this stun effect. Okay, enemies that are hit are stunned for 2 seconds. Once again, this Crispin Sentence kicks in. Any enemy that's stunned is going to take triple that damage, that 100%. So they're going to take 300% damage. I've tried using other variations of the Bone Armor, other runes. I've tried Thy Flesh Sustained with a different legendary gem, which really greatly heals me. It heals me a lot. But I've just found that the damage bonus that I get from stunning enemies is so good. I've just decided to keep it. I've also tried this one to increase my my movement speed by 10-15%. Not bad, but I've never tried. That's basically worthless, and this is kind of worthless. This one just seems to work best. Stunning enemies, and then my Crispin Sentence kicks in. Defensively, if I got a lot of enemies around me and seem like they might be about to kill me, I'll hit the Bone Armor and stun them. And that allows me to come back from it. Land of the Dead. I've tried different variations. The Frozen Land works best for me because it freezes the enemies, everyone around me, which helps me defensively, but also, once again, helps this Crispin Sentence kick in, so everyone's frozen. They're going to take triple that 100 instead of 100%. They're going to take 300%. And then I've got Frailty. This is good because it curses enemies. It's an aura. Now, another thing that I like about this version of the curse, I don't have to do anything. A lot of people are using other types of curses, like a lot of people like this Decrepify. I like it because I have it, it's on, I don't have to think about it. It just works. If I went with a different curse, let's say I went with the one that a lot of people use, Decrepify, with Borrowed Time. Now that is nice, but you have to actually cast it. Every moment that you spend doing something other than attacking is a moment wasted. So people who are using this Decrepify, if they're having to cast it, well, they're casting it, but they're not attacking. They're not doing anything really productive. So I like the Frailty one because it's automatic. I don't have to do anything. It's just on and it just works. I'm sorry. I should say it's not just Frailty, but it's with this this particular rune. This just makes it an aura. So it's on, it's right now, I don't have to do anything, any enemies within the area. Now the only limitation to this one is that I have to be near the enemy. Okay, I have to be near the enemy. Well, I have to be near the enemy anyway for my Grim Sith. Maybe with other builds, maybe you wouldn't want to necessarily be near your enemy, so maybe it wouldn't work as well, but that doesn't matter to me. I don't mind. I actually want my enemies to be near me, so I use Frailty. My passive skills, I go back and forth between this one, but I found this one to be so useful. This one makes it so that if you die, you don't actually die. You're given a second chance at life, but it only works. I'm sorry. It only can't occur again. It's got a 60-second cooldown time after it kicks in, basically. So if I die a second time within 16 seconds, then I actually die. But this saves me a lot. Standalone, this is good for this build. For builds that you have a lot of minions, this is completely ineffective. But it increases my armor by 100%, but it's reduced by 10% for each active minion. The only active minions I ever have is maybe a couple of these. So most of the time I'm at 90, maybe 80, maybe sometimes 70% bonus damage to armor. But that works out really, really well. Overwhelming Essence, this gives me an extra 40 Essence. That contributes to this, which contributes to this damage bonus. Like I said, half of this damage bonus goes to, half of this essence goes to a bonus to damage. So without that, I'd be getting less bonus damage. And I've got, I switch back and forth. This one I've tried to really focus more on killing the elites with Land of the Dead. Before I wasn't using this one. Before I was using Life from Death. And I was using a lot of Corpse Lances because I found that the Nephilim Glory, which is a yellow globe that pops out every once in a while, once I get that Nephilim Glory, if I've got this active, I've basically got that Nephilim Glory for the rest of the Rift. Because I'm constantly consuming corpses, at least I was. And the health globes replenish the time on those Nephilim Glories every time I consume one. And I'm making a lot of health globes, or at least I was anyways when I had this active. And the Nephilim Glory doesn't do all that much damage, but I think it does. It increases your movement speed, and I like that for that reason, to try and help me keep my seasonal bonus and so forth, so I can get to the next monster faster. But once I got this Johnstone, before, remember, like I said before, I was using can't think of the name of it for some reason. Before I was using the Wisdom of Kalan, I was relying more on my Grim Sith. Still using this, but I was relying heavily on the Grim Sith. Well, once I got the Johnstone and I saw how much damage it does, bonus to the Land of the Dead, I decided to put more focus on the Land of the Dead. So I took this off and I went with this. So now I'm not really using my Corpse Lances so much anymore, because the Corpse Lances will use up those stacks from the Johnstone. So now I don't use this Corpse Lance at all unless I'm attacking an elite, which basically made this more or less worthless. So I gave this up and I activated this. So this basically cuts down the cooldown time of this by 20%, which means I can use this a little bit more often. I was going with this one occasionally too. This gives me a pretty good movement speed, but it's not really all that much because it only lasts for 5 seconds. So sometimes I was using this one to give my Grim Sith an extra 15% attack speed, but like I said, I'm trying to focus more on the Land of the Dead Corpse Lance than I am on Grim Sith. I was also using this one for a while. The only thing I don't like about this one is it does virtually no good against a Rift Guardian. It's almost completely worthless. Gives me a 1% damage bonus for each enemy afflicted by one of my curses. The only Rift Guardians that will be affected with this are ones that summon up creatures, minions, and then that way, you know, maybe I'll have 4 or 5% bonus damage. It's nice going through the Rift because I get a bonus to damage from my frailty. Let's say if they got 10 creatures around me, well, then I've got 10% damage bonus. But I mean, unless if there's a trick to using it, like maybe if you had something like this, and let's say you could curse a whole bunch of enemies and never kill them. Well, let's say you got 100 of them. I don't know how many. Maybe you got 30 of them in the Rift. You've got 30 of them cursed. They last forever. Then you've got a 30% damage bonus. At least I think for that level of the Rift. I think once you go down a level, you would. But even against the Rift Guardian, all the enemies die. So all of your curses would go, and you would no longer have this bonus. So I gave this up. This just didn't work for me hardly at all. I believe that's it. That's my current build. A lot of people use yellow gems in here, and I normally was. But when I switched from my Leoric's Crown to this Andariel's Visage, I lost a lot of toughness. And just to keep myself from dying, I decided to put purple gems in here to boost up my health and my defense, which inadvertently or additionally helps out my 21% life. So it helps out. I think it helps out my critical hit damage a good amount. So if we look at my different stats, and I don't look at these too much, but 13% bonus damage against elites. That's kind of irrelevant for me because I'm not usually just killing just elites. A lot of people try and pile this on because they just go after just elites. I'm not really doing that this season. I got my critical hit chance up to 34.5%. Damage is at 354. I used to use a red gem in here all the time, but since I've been trying to do a lot more with critical hit chance, so I've decided to go with the green gem in here, which really boosts up that critical hit damage by a lot. I never do anything with area damage. I don't like to put anything into that at all. Cooldown reduction 10%. I don't really do too much with that. And of course my cold damage I've already said is 75% bonus. So that's really good because both of my attacks are cold based. So here is without the standalone, let's see, this reduces my damage by 81.555%. So my toughness is at 135. If I take off that standalone, let's say I put this on, wow, look at how much my toughness went down. That's, to me, that's quite a bit. So I went down a lot. So 86. Put this back on to 135. I mean, it's not quite double, but it's almost double the amount of toughness there just from that standalone. But once again, if I was summoning up lots of creatures, if I had like skeletons, skeletal mages, golems, stuff like that, revive, I wouldn't use standalone because then it wouldn't be kicking in as much. So these are pretty much my resistances. So that 51.95%, that's from the Legacy of Dreams. You get a 3%, roughly 3% for each ancient legendary, I'm sorry, 4% for each ancient legendary item, and there's 13, so 4 times 13 is 52. I don't know why they say 51.95. I don't know. So I try and keep these, I try and do what I can with these. Whenever I'm switching out abilities, I would like it if each one of them had some kind of, like this one has bonus to fire resistance. I'd like it if each one of them had something like that, but just doesn't work out that way. Obviously you want to go to the Enchantress and maximize all of your stats. This one I could change that 14% life. I could boost that up one more to 15%. I just haven't done it yet. But most of my other ones are all at maximum 20%. I had to put a socket in that one. I had to put a socket in that one. Had to put 2 sockets in that one. This one, I could put movement speed in that. I think that's the only other one, but I found that that 128% resist all elements is better than movement speed. Because one of the things I did not know is when it comes to movement speed, you can't go above 25% with your items and your Paragon points. So like with the Paragon points, I've got a bonus of 25% here. If I put a bonus, let's say 10% movement speed here, my movement speed will not go to 35%. I don't know why they do that, but you can only have a maximum of 25% from your items and your Paragon. So what I would do is if I put movement speed in here, I would more or less just be able to reduce this movement speed by a few points, put those points into, let's say, intelligence. But it's just not worth it. I've just found that the resist all, or if they had something else, I'd probably rather have life, but I don't think I could put life into this. So I just put that resist all elements in there. 15% life. I could, and I think for a while I was going with either Grim Sith or Corpse Lance bonus damage. But I didn't like that idea because I'm only helping one without helping the other. And the 15% life not only increases my toughness and my defense, but once again it also helps this thing to kick in that much more because I've got a larger amount of life to get me below that 21% damage. So just continuing to look at my stats. I think arcane and physical are usually the 2 most important for me. I do a lot of hand-to-hand fighting, so I like to have my physical as high as I can, but unfortunately it's only at 1800 right now. So these are the rest of my stats. Most of these are pretty minimal at most. So there's my movement speed. And that's pretty much it. I do got a couple other minor builds. When I'm doing just a Nephilim Rift, I switch out and I use gold skin to give me gold, and Kimbo's gold to also give me gold. My bonus to gold. My bonus to gold is usually pretty good in a Nephilim Rift. I also put on Nagel Ring to give me 40% better chance to find magic items, and I give my Templar a Nagel Ring also, which I think I get 1/5 of that. So usually when I'm doing a Nephilim Rift, my magic find is usually around an extra bonus of 50%. I'm hoping that helps. I'm hoping that's helped me to find the items that I've been looking for this whole time. Nephilim Rifts are usually a lot less difficult than a Greater Rift, so I can afford to give up my Shimizu, my Johnstone, and my Crispin Sentence for the Nagel Ring, Kimbo's Gold, and the Gold Skin. And I've also got my Boon of the Hoarder, which can only be obtained, you may or may not know this, you can only attain the Boon of the Hoarder by defeating Greed, which is the main guardian in a vault. So once you kill Greed, this drops and you level it up to rank 50. Then every time you kill an enemy, it drops gold. There's an explosion of gold, plus you gain a bonus to movement speed, so that's nice too. So this, with trying to maximize my gold find, and I've got other gold find items as well. This one is different from this. This does not have gold find in it, but this one does, so I wear this one. Even though it's not ancient, it does reduce my damage reduction and damage by a little bit, but not so much to where it makes a big difference. Same thing with this one, Dainty's Binding. This one is ancient legendary, this one is not, but this one's got the gold find in it. So I try to do little things like that. This one is a little bit different from this. This one's got the gold find in it, this one does not. So I've been able to keep my gold find high enough to where I've got 4.3 billion gold. It was a season, I think it was last season, maybe the season before, where I kept running out of money. Kept running out of money. And I decided at that point that when I do Nephilim rifts, I wanted to keep my gold find high enough to where I would never run out of money. And you basically run out of money by gambling on your greater rifts, which can usually, I think it's about 70 million gold each time you gamble. So, so that can add up pretty quick. So this is my general build for Nephilim rifts. I go back to Leoric's Crown. Because I gave up, what did I give up? I guess I just don't need the damage bonus. I just want to make sure I don't die. Occasionally I die in a Nephilim rift by some silly thing that I'm just not paying attention. But I figured with the less damage reduction that I have from some of my stuff, I wanted a little extra health, so I decided to go with this instead. And I do go with my health globes to try and give me that Nephilim glory. In a Nephilim rift, a Nephilim glory is an extra 10% movement speed. So I like that when I can get it. And this is also geared towards movement speed to keep those, to help me to get done with a Nephilim rift a lot faster. So this is my basic setup for a Nephilim rift. When I'm doing a bounty run, which I just did last episode, I'm playing multiplayer in bounty runs, so that means I've got no unity. Why do I have unity here on my bounty run? Okay, I forgot to switch this out. It shouldn't be unity, it should be something else. I guess some reason I forgot to change it. This should be, I believe, Nagel Ring. I know what I did. I switched them back and forth, but then I forgot to switch this out. So this should be Nagel Ring. Because when you're doing multiplayer, you don't get your followers, so you don't get the benefit from Unity. So why I still have this here, I shouldn't have this here. I should have taken that out. I'm going to have to change that after. But I found in the bounty runs, Necromancer this season is the weakest, absolute weakest, and all of the other builds, character classes, especially the monks, barbarians, and crusaders, they finish so fast compared to me. It's a joke. The Necromancer is so underpowered now. So I basically just tried to throw everything into movement speed. I switched this over to a bonus to movement speed. I got Krell's buff as a movement speed. I got rid of the Firewalkers because the bonus from Pandemonium doesn't kick in so much. So I just go with the Illusory Boots so I can just run past everything as fast as I can. Yeah, so this is a little bit different. Consuming Corpses, movement speed. This I probably don't really even need this, but I have this anyways. So this is my build for my legacy, for my bounties, and then my vault run. I basically, when I'm doing a vault run, I do have the Boon of the Hoarder, but not so much with the gold find. I don't really do too much with the gold find. Usually with a vault run, I'm just focusing on killing the treasure fiends at the end, just to give myself a little, hopefully, chance to get a good item that will drop. And if I get low on Death Breath, which is actually starting to occur pretty soon, I do a lot of upgrading of my yellow items, my rare items, to legendary to try and find good, maybe get a good primal item. I will go into my Inarius setup. Whoops, Whimsy Dale. This is my Inarius setup. Not quite as effective as for going into Nephilim Rifts. Not quite as effective as this build, but it allows me to wear the Sage's Journey, which doubles the amount of Death Breath that drop. You get so many Death Breath, so many, that it can be worth it, really worth it to wear this at least once in a while. And once in a while I'll go into a Nephilim Rift with this setup on just to gain that extra Death Breath from this. And This is just, it's basically the same exact thing as this, except instead of wearing ancient legendary items, I'm using the Anarius setup. Obviously I won't have certain items on because I've got to wear the Anarius items, but it's more or less the same type of thing, same exact thing. Just I'm getting double the number of death breath that drop. You need to have the Ring of Royal Grandeur to make this work, because otherwise you won't be able to wear this. You would have to wear all 6 pieces of Anarius. Well, this makes it to where you can wear just 5 pieces and then 2 pieces of the Sage's Journey, which will give you the double the number of death breath drop, which obviously you may not, you should know, but this is something that you craft at Hadrig, the blacksmith here. Alright, so that's basically my build, and currently what I'm doing is I'm working towards leveling up my legendary gems to about as high as I can get them, which will probably be about level 105. I've got most of them up into the 90s, and once I do that, once I get them all leveled up, then I will be using this recipe here to augment my items, and I'll basically be getting 100. I'll basically, for every augment, I'll be gaining 500 intelligence roughly for each item that I augment. So 13 times 5, if I get them all done, that'll be what, 6,500 intelligence roughly. So that should hopefully put me in a pretty good position for the leaderboards. I don't know how many of these things you use. Extract legendary powers from items, from legendary items. I've done a few. Some people, like a friend of mine, he wanted to have all of them filled. I have just been doing the ones that have been useful that I need. So I don't do those too much. Reforged legendary, I'm going to be waiting more towards the end or right before I start augmenting, before I use them. I've got enough materials here for I think about 40 augments, 30, 40. I might have more than that later on. I usually don't reforge early, because if I reforge, let's say I reforge this one and I spend all of my materials on it and get a good one, okay, I've got a good one, but the next rift that I do, one might drop randomly, in which case I've spent all of that material, all those crafting materials to reforge one when a good one just dropped randomly. So usually I just kind of wait towards the end of the, or right before, let's say right before I'm going to augment, before I do any reforging. I used to do it all the time, but then that happened to me once or twice. I reforged an item, got a good one, but then another one dropped later on randomly. And I'm like, okay, I just spent all of that material, all those materials to reforge an item when one dropped randomly. So I didn't do that too much anymore. Upgrade rare items. This is one that I use a lot. When I go and I spend blood shards, I'll usually go for a weapon. And every so often I get a one-handed Sith. And I will upgrade that one-handed Sith, hoping for a primal. Okay, you can get primals from the cube and from blood shards and so forth, spending blood shards. So I'm hoping for a primal version of this. Haven't got one yet. This particular item here is pretty good. The base damage is a little low, but I got that 10% damage, and I've got 198% bonus damage, which is pretty close to maximum. So I think the only version I get of this that's going to be any better than this is a primal item. So that's why I use this. Convert set items. I don't use this ever because I don't use set items for this build. Remove level requirement. I've never used that one. Convert gems. I might have to do that at some point. Usually when I want to augment, when you augment, you need 3 of the most powerful gem. It takes 81 of the smallest gem to make 1 of the largest, and you need 3 for an augment. But usually by the end of the season I've got so many gems that even though I need 3 of the largest for 1 augment, and I've got 13, so I end up at the end of the season needing 39 of the largest gems. I usually have so many gems at the end of the season, or when I want to start augmenting, I get so many I generally don't need Actually, I'll take that back. I need to use this a little bit. This allows you to convert one type of gem to another. I'm going to be using all yellow gems. I don't know why I just said all that. I'm going to take that back. I usually do end up using this to convert. I'll convert a bunch of these, let's say that I don't use so much, over to these. I'll convert a bunch of these over to these. I can only do it 9 at a time, so I do end up using this. I'm sorry. This one, convert gems. You get these things from Squirt the Peddler in Act 2, the city in Act 2, Caldeum. So you gotta get one of these, and then you put your gems that you don't want in here with the color that you do want of this, and then you convert, and you can only do 9 at a time. You can use 9 at a time, so, and then it'll convert them over. It comes in handy. I do use these quite a bit because I found when you upgrade a rare item, you need a bunch of this stuff. You need 50 of each. So each upgrade uses 50 of each of these. So I'll convert, if I've got a surplus of these, I'll convert some of these over to veiled crystals. And then that way I keep them all, try to keep them all about even. So that comes up every once in a while. And that's it. So at the moment I'm just working to level up those legendary gems to be able to augment my items. And my place on the leaderboards, I was at 160 something. I'm doing pretty good with this build. Tier 105, 1305. 105, 1305. So here I am, not too bad. I'm at 148. So that's not too bad, and you can view my hero details. Pretty much same exact build as the one I have now. The only way I'll probably go up any higher in the leaderboards is once I start augmenting. Obviously this was 1074? 1074. Sorry, not 100. Okay, so this is just a few levels ago I got this high up. Same build, so the only thing that's going to get me up is augmenting my items, which will increase my intelligence, which would make me more powerful, or by getting more powerful versions of these items. So, you know, and I don't know where I'm going to finish out at the end of the season. Maybe I'm going to guess maybe tier 109. I found that unfortunately augmenting does not give a huge bonus to your damage. It's a little bit. 600 intelligence per, or 500 intelligence per augment. Not bad, but maybe if I get a primal weapon, maybe a couple other more powerful versions of these. Like these depth diggers aren't really all that great. I think last season I had like one that was 100%. That would really help me out a lot. Like, you know, this one's only 87%. This is only at 26%. Maybe if I got a version of this at 30%, you know, that might help me out. Little things that might help here and there might help me out. This is maximum at 100%. This is 77%. Not bad. Obviously, I could do a little bit better here and there. Alright, that is my current build. I don't know how long I've been going for here, but hopefully that is a good explanation of my build. And we'll see how it goes. Alright, when I come back, I'm going to start doing some greater rifting. I've got 20 keystones. So I'm looking to finish leveling this up to level 91, and then I'll start at the next gem, which I guess will be that one. Alright, I will be right back. How long have I been going for anyways? Wow, hour and 14 minutes. Okay. I usually try and keep my videos at 40, 45 minutes at most. But so, sorry, I've been going for a little long there. Okay, I will be back.